Hey everybody, it's Steve with Real Progressives, and I am getting ready for my road trip to Washington, D.C. to get ready to go to the economic forums tomorrow. And I figured I'd stop by while I'm charging my phone and getting myself together to do a quick live stream and talk about something that is extremely vital to any kind of a progressive revolution long term that's outside the duopoly. And that is a term that many of you probably have never heard, called Duverger's Law. Duverger's Law, it basically talks about the way the electoral process and the representative districts are set up. And it discusses the difficulty that a third party would have to actually break from the duopoly. Now, I fully supported Jill Stein, and I fully support a third party. I support a 20th party. But the problem is that there are some structural boundaries, some structural hurdles that we don't talk enough about. And I don't feel like people have been terribly honest and forthcoming with what the challenges of those hurdles are. I'm absolutely disgusted and through with the Democratic Party. I'm not ever voting for a Republican, so that leaves me in a very difficult spot because I plan on voting in every election. So what is it that I can do? What is it that we can do to get past these structural hurdles so that our vote actually has some merit to it right now? Because right now, let's be fair, right now we're in a position where the hurdles are so great and they're run by the duopoly. How do we actually penetrate and knock those walls down? How do we make them, in essence, take away their monopoly power to allow for a third party to actually have the kind of impact that our vote should carry with it? And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm going to be researching over the next several weeks, months, as long as it takes, to figure out what the missing piece is beyond just vote your conscience, beyond just vote for your values and so forth. I think it's disingenuous in large measure to just say that. Again, I've said it, I believe it. I am going to vote my values, and I am going to vote for the person that actually supports the policies that I believe are best representative of being a real progressive. But let's be fair about the possibilities of them actually governing and winning the presidency. It's another thing altogether to actually win local and state races, to be able to fill the halls of Congress and the voting areas in these local and state areas that can actually change the laws to enable us to have a viable third party. But the more and more research I do, the more I realize that we really do need to do this from the bottom up. It's the only way to overcome the structural hurdles. I love Jill Stein. I love the idea of having a true progressive party. But they've got some structural hurdles. Have any of you guys ever actually dug into Duverger's Law? It's part psychology, part structural, but nonetheless, it's gotten to the point where they removed it from just a, hey, here's a thought that you could have, to an actual law. And they usually don't make these things laws, because laws connotate some sort of absolutism, and that's pretty frightening. So if you guys want to know what you can do, my opinion is thus. At this moment, it'll get deeper going forward, but at this moment, the most important thing you can do is get involved in your local third-party politics. Get involved with your Green Party, get involved in a progressive independent party, socialist alternative, whatever it is that you're going to get involved in. Help them get elected to local office to begin building that that critical mass we need to change election laws. We need to do it way in advance of a 4-year presidential cycle. We need to start now, today. We needed to start it a long time ago. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, I've been largely a duopoly stooge for an awful long time. I have not done the necessary research to be the guy that would take something like this to court. I know that third parties way back in the day have had impacts, and I know third parties have had impacts on elections in various ways, be it bringing up issues, be it telling people, hey, this is how we feel, using them as a means of elevating issues and causes and providing a viable outlet for absolutely despicable candidates such as what we had this go-round. But that's not the same thing as having a viable option to actually win the presidency. So I think it's very important that we, over the next 2 to 4 years, do everything we can to elect Greens and progressives of all persuasions into office at every level of government. If you have a chance to run as an independent. Do what you can to run as a Green. Do what you can to run as a progressive independent party person, whatever. We've got to flood Congress, and we've got to flood the local school boards and friggin', mayors and governors, you name it. We've got to flood them with third-party candidates where the duopoly doesn't have the same power to influence. It's the only way. I'm absolutely positive. The more and more I've dug into this, the more and more I realize that the problem is people get lazy. They don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to take the time to do more than cast a vote for a president. It's not sexy. It's not sexy to campaign for a town mayor. It's not sexy to campaign for a school board. But these are the ways that we're going to change the country. And it's going to take a lot of work. And I'm very disappointed. Let me just be real honest. I'm very, very disappointed that I have not heard more of this from the third parties that are out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure they've said it somewhere, stuffed in the back of a brochure. I'm sure that they've said it somewhere. I know there are people organizing in their local Green chapters, especially I've met people in Detroit that are doing it. I know they're all over the place in Minnesota. It's a really, really positive. I've seen it in Texas, but there's not enough focus on the local game. That is how it's going to be done. So if you really want change, you're going to have to use an inside-outside strategy. You're going to have to work on the structural boundaries and structural hurdles that are there for third-party candidates. Otherwise, we will always be a protest vote. Otherwise, we will always just be the fringe, even though we're not fringe. That's the thing. Even though our ideas and concepts are mainstream, they're really, really good. The two parties are very, very, very protective of their monopoly or duopoly power. This is where people power comes in. This is where grassroots comes in. Doing the hard work at the local level and overturning a system that is designed to keep very, very limited choices in play. Now, I will tell you one law I would love to put on the books. Currently, the duopoly has no obligation whatsoever to have a primary. I don't know if you realize this or not, but the duopoly parties are private entities. When you get the nomination for a party, there is absolutely nothing saying they have to run a primary even. They don't have to provide anything for you. They could just insert someone and say, this is our nominee. In my opinion, if they want to have duopoly power over our nation, then they should be forced to hold to election laws at the national level holds for elected office or local for elected office, as if a nominee is in essence elected office. Because right now, that's not the way it is. That would be one way to ensure that we had more of a plurality of choices even in primaries. So in any event, I know this isn't a real sexy talk, but this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm tired of people just flapping gums. You know this. I'm tired of people not getting economics. You know this. But this is a serious one. Understanding the politics of getting a third-party candidate at the presidential level into position where they can actually win. It's going to take some work, folks. Are you up for it? Do you want to overturn the duopoly? If you do, it's in our hands for real. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work. This is where a real revolution comes in. This is where real organizing comes in. This is the stuff we should be talking about, not Donald Trump. This is the stuff that we need to be talking about. Actually finding a way to overturn the duopoly so that we never have to suck on the lesser evil tit again. But it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to stay engaged, and you're going to have to care more than just the first 5 minutes of a 4-year cycle. Just laying out the facts, folks. I'm going to do more research on Duverger's law. I'm going to do more research on what it's going to take for a third party to actually be consequential. And right now, folks, it's in our hands. This is Steve with Real Progressives. Have a wonderful day. Please help us. Donate to our Patreon account. Please find us on YouTube. Please find us on Twitter. And please, by all means, invite your friends here. Next Saturday, we're having a business meeting in D.C. I want to have 100,000 by that time. Right now, we're just over 95,000. Help us get to 100,000 by next Saturday. Help us celebrate 100,000 real progressives at our meeting. Anyway, this is Steve. Have a great night.